Good evening, and I'm your host, Thaddeus Tate. Welcome back to the Teen Take, where Gen Z breaks down politics in plain language. As I said earlier, my name is Thaddeus Tate, and I'm so happy to be back for the new year. And we have a lot to cover today. It is a very jam-packed day where I will be covering everything that has started from 2026, the new year. So let's start with something that came in just before I hit record, that Senator Kelly, the Democratic senator from Arizona, is suing the Pentagon and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth for statements that he made that the Secretary of Defense is retaliating against, and five other Democratic senators made, telling service members that they have the right to defy illegal orders given to them by the Secretary of Defense in the Pentagon. Kelly is a potential 2028 presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, and he was accused of sedition and treason for posting the aforementioned video. In the video, he said that our laws are clear and that you can refuse illegal orders, telling that to service members. The lawsuit that was filed in Washington asked the federal judge to block the Pentagon and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth from making and punishing him for the actions that he made in the aforementioned video and calling the action unlawful and unconstitutional. The complaint that started the lawsuit used by Secretary Hegseth, he said that Kelly said that the First Amendment forbids the government and its officials from punishing disfavored speech, and that the prohibition applies with particular force to legislators speaking on the matters of public policy, which Kelly was at the time of making the video. And on the Senate floor today, Senator Kelly stated that that is my job and that I have every right to say these things as an American, as a retired service member, and as a U.S. Senator. That is something that he said again on the Senate floor today. I believe that was this morning. In the formal letter of censure that Hegseth used to start this whole idea, and that was released last week, he accused Kelly of characterizing the lawful military operations as illegal, and that Kelly had been doing this in a sustained pattern that began in June this past year. In the social media post, Hegseth stated Kelly, being a sitting senator, does not, and I quote, exempt him from accountability, and further violations could result in further actions. The actions that the secretary indicated could be a decision that is released in mid-February that could reduce the senator's rank and pension, him being a retired service member. The lawsuit stated that the statements about policy and personnel was protected under the speech and debate clause, which has been debated and long interpreted to protect the members of Congress and their legislation from executive or judicial discipline. Kelly also argues that him being a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee has every single right to provide congressional oversight and states that state the actions of Hegseth, basically. And it is my belief that we should be checking the Constitution on matters of public speech because the president and his administration are doing everything to attempt to lessen our voices, which I clearly do not stand for. And I commend Kelly for stepping out against the Pentagon and the Trump administration for their actions. Moving on to something that has happened just after the turn of year, on January 3rd, 2026, President Trump ordered that the dictator president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, be arrested by U.S. Service members on charges of drug trafficking, narcoterrorism, conspiracy, and possession of machine guns and other destructive weapons. All of these charges Maduro pled not guilty to on January 5th in a New York court, I believe. And this capturing of Maduro screams 1986, when President George Bush arrested the former dictator of I believe, Panama, in 1986, the apprehension of the dictator took more than 30 1,000 troops, and after the apprehension of the dictator stood trial, was convicted, and served his time in the United States prison system. In 1986, the move was mainly supported by Congress, who stated that President Bush supported democracy and was protecting the Panama Canal and American citizens. In today's case, President Trump has the partial support of Congress, with the majority of the Senate with the majority of the Senate voting 52 to 47, saying that Trump must seek congressional approval before taking any more military action, against Venezuela, with GOP senators Rand Paul of Kentucky, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, Todd Young of Indiana, and Josh Haley of Missouri backing the bill and voting with Democrats. Venezuelans in and out of Venezuela have supported the measure and supported President Trump by celebrating on social media. I believe that this move is definitely political to make President Trump look like he is cracking down on drugs entering the United States, and I support it for now if it doesn't lead to another invasion by United States troops in the future. Overall, Trump is making this move about him and him cracking down on drugs, and less about Venezuela being free from the actions of the dictator President Maduro. Moving on to something that I talked about before the turn of the new year in July, I believe, about the Jerome Powell situation. And Powell, of course, is the chair of the Federal Reserve, or Fed for short. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia has opened a criminal investigation into Powell on Sunday regarding the renovation of the central bank and its headquarters in Washington, and whether or not he lied in front of Congress about the scale of the project. The investigation and inquiry, which includes discovery of Powell's spending records and public statements, was greenlighted by President Trump and ally, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, in November. As I said earlier, you may remember me talking about in the past Trump and Powell longstanding feud regarding him cutting interest rates in Trump's first term. This major escalation of the feud, and Trump has threatened to sue, has gotten to the extent where Trump has threatened to sue Powell over $2.5 billion, over the $2.5 billion renovation, citing the incompetency, in Trump's words. Trump told the New York Times in an interview this past week that he had decided who was going to be the next Fed chair to replace Powell. While a name hasn't been given, there has been speculation that Trump ally and economist Kevin Hassant will be the next Fed chair, having to pass the Senate. However, Powell could be removed before then. His term ends in May, so he may still be in office by then, depending on how long the Trump team takes. He will still be a governor of the Fed, the Federal Reserve, until January 2028, meaning the next president's term will have already started, but however, may be removed by then, depending on the wishes of President Trump. In a rare statement that the Fed released, Powell stated this new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Federal Reserve, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment and what will serve the public, rather than following the president's preferences of the president. Excuse me, I butchered the last sentence, but we are fine. Moving on to something that kind of happened in between these two periods. I'm recording this on the 12th. I'm hoping for this to go out on the 12th. On the 8th of January, just this past Friday, the House passed a bill including health subsidies that expired at the turn of this year to the Affordable Care Act passed under the Obama-Biden administration. This passage is a win for Democrats, definitely, as a few Republicans broke away from their party to vote A on the bill. The bill passed 230 to 90 to 196 in the House. Sadly, the bill has no chance of enactment as the Senate already rejected the bill, and Trump has said that he won't sign a bill regarding health subsidies, stating that he would rather give the money directly to the citizens rather to buy their own health insurance. The passage, I am very happy about it, even though it won't pass the Senate, signals that Congress, or at least the House, is very, very ready to telling me that the Senate and the House maybe is very ready to vote A on health insurance in the in the ACA, and is shifting Democrat as we have seen in the past few years. Um, Moving on to something that is very, very interesting is the EPA. For decades upon decades, the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, has considered human lives when deciding and calculating the health benefits of reducing air pollution, using this as a major cost when it comes to the impacts of climate change on humans and deciding whether to reduce it. Um, Under the Trump administration, the EPA, or organizations like it, have taken it to the back burner, even with the Trump administration believing that climate change is, quote, a democratic hoax, which Trump has used in many terms relating to this and the Epstein files. And the Trump administration, was going to drill, baby drill, which has been deemed by the Trump administration as a contributor to climate change past years. Today, the Trump administration plans to stop tallying the gains of human lives when determining whether to reduce climate change. I'm not going to go into the science of it, however, this could be detrimental to the impacts of the on the way the government and the public views climate change on and its impacts. It's my belief that the Trump administration is attempting to phase out the impacts of drill baby drill, and ignore them instead of fixing them. This is clearly a bad thing for the American people, but not only the human race, as it could have massive, massive, and major negative impacts on the longevity of the human race. Now moving something kind of similar to what I said earlier about, what was his name? Jerome Powell, but moving on to James Comey and the firing of Virginia staffer. This is something that I just saw maybe an hour ago, and I just wanted to include it as it does kind of relate to freedom of speech. Today, an Virginia senior federal prosecutor was fired after they supported James Comey, the former FBI director and long-term Trump nemesis, regarding the indictment, according to individuals close to the matter. The latest fallout in the Justice Department comes as President Trump intends to punish Comey for the past investigations, including but not limited to the January 6th investigation in 2021, the dismissal of Robert McBride. The Virginia federal prosecutor had been serving as a U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia for only a few months, being appointed by Trump just last year. The Trump administration reportedly wanted McBride to reconsider the indictment of Comey when he said no, and the disagreement arose, and he got fired, which is just, once again, a huge loss of to the Constitution. This move to re-indict Comey in the future, and I believe that this move, as I said earlier, should have everybody question the Constitution, because Trump is going after his long-term political enemies without any ground, except that he just dislikes them. Moving on to something that will end our show today are the Meta layoffs. Meta, the company in charge of Facebook and Instagram, is expected to announce that they are firing more than 10% of their employees in the Reality Labs business. The work that they do impacts the metaverse, and they are expected to release this week, according to 3 people close to the discussions, as the company shifts to advancing the next generation of artificial intelligence. These cuts could come to around 1,000 workers and could be announced as soon as tomorrow, Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. The cuts would leave Meta with a total of 78,000 people, but are going to disproportionately impact those using virtual reality based headsets and social medias, according to those close to the cuts. And a move that could be seen as weird by some, Andrew Boseworth, the chief tech technology officer who oversees the lab, has called a meeting for Wednesday, January 14th. I believe that is the 14th, yes. And urges employees to attend in person, which was attained last week by the New York Times. Mark Zuckerberg, the company's CEO, asked the company to cut their 2026 budgets as he prepares to pour money into AI-based research and wearables such as AI glasses and AI wristbands, as they have begun to face competition from OpenAI, the company in charge of ChatGPT, and Google. In December, a spokeswoman from Meta declined to comment on if the company was making any major shifts. I believe that this move may be good for AI and all of the other stuff that I talked about earlier, but however, thousands of people are going to be now searching for a job in an already competitive job market. So we'll see how it turns out in the future, and how it impacts the job market, seeing as 15,000 new people will be looking for and searching for a job. So that wraps up today's episode. I hope you all have had a safe and fun holidays and New Year's, or whatever you celebrate as we have entered the new year. And I hope that all of you have had and made your New Year's aspirations, as they are a big part of my life and other people's lives. My New Year's aspiration is become an academic weapon. If you don't know what that means, search it up, because I'm not going to tell you. And so I just wanted to end today's episode on a good note. The Golden Globes were last week. I might cover them in next week's episode. Excuse me, I just hit my mic. I cannot wait to see where this new year takes me, takes all of you guys. If you know me in real life, I can't wait to hear how you think that this podcast went. I hope that you all, again, once have had a great new year and will have a great, fantastic year. And I know that I will, producing these wonderful podcasts. And my mom suggested that I, instead of writing a full script, just have bullet points that I hit all of them. And that was a good idea. Thank you, Mom, for that idea. It really helped me with today's episode and getting this one out. And I probably will continue to do the same thing going into the new year. So I hope that you, again, have had all safe New Year. I hope you've had a nice time with family and friends, and have given some good presents to your family for Christmas and Hanukkah. And I'm forgetting one. Excuse me if you celebrate that holiday. I do not mean to forget it. Again, just have a good day. Have a wonderful tomorrow. I have exams this week, so I'll be very busy, but I will still try to produce this episode next week on Monday. Yeah, I cannot wait to see where this year takes me, takes all of you. And it has been nice talking to you today. My name is Thaddeus Tate, and that was the Tate Take. Stay smart, stay kind, stay wise, and stay energetic. I know that I will. Thank you for listening, and that was the Teen Take.